Okay, so we are going to be talking about two things primarily today. Basically about reviewing the literature. I'm going to talk a little bit about, we're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to talk a little bit about the concept paper. Please, unless you have a specific question, please, you don't need to unmute your mic. All right, so just remember, just to give you back a frame, for some people, it's actually their first class and others have forgotten the basic concepts. So remember, in SCIT, we're using a 5-chapter model for research. Chapter 1 is an introduction. Chapter 2 is a literature review. Chapter 3 is a methods and procedures chapter. Chapter 4 is a results chapter. Chapter 5 is conclusions and recommendations. And in this course, RES 3024, we prepare you with a focus on chapter 1 to 3. And major project is chapter 1 to 5. This course is a prerequisite for major project, which is a 1-year course, which you can do in year 4, year 5, year 6 of your program. It's a 1-year course, so please do not try to sign up for it or to start it in semester 2 because it's a 1-year program. So note to all. So in what you do as the first assignment for the class is called a concept paper, and that concept paper can become the introductory chapter for a proposal, a longer proposal. So you can actually think of the concept paper as like a mini proposal and a traditional research proposal as chapters 1 to 3. So the heart of a research proposal is really the research question. But the only way you can actually justify your research question is to do a proper literature review. The other thing in context is you've all, either in high school, certainly in university, been writing papers, whether individually or in groups, and been calling those research papers. In this class, we would call that a literature review, because basically you read academic drones, whether it's books or journals or conference proceedings, and then write about it in your own words, hopefully with some reflection. That's really a literature review. This class prepares you to how to do an empirical study. We could define that. That's not really the focus of today's lecture. And in order to figure out what is a suitable empirical study to do or to propose, you should read the literature so that you can justify whether that makes sense, right? Remember, justifying it to make sense, it should be either of theoretical or practical significance. Theoretical significance means that it adds to the body of written knowledge. Practical significance means that it helps solve a real world problem. So an academic research project could do one or both, but at least one. A lot of students tend to mix up purpose and significance when they're writing, just to go through again what's in the concept paper. So the concept paper has a background. I like to call that a mini literature review. So today's lecture should help you with even the concept paper, because we're going to go through the principles of writing a literature review. And the background of your concept paper, your first assignment, actually requires that you review scholarly literature. So the background, you have 2 or 3 paragraphs, basically looking at important literature on your topic. Then the next section, the problem statement, is a summary of what you had in the background. It should be connected and a summary. Then the next thing is a purpose. The purpose is just simply what does the researcher or research team aim to accomplish in the bounds of the time of the project. So if your project is 3 months long, what is the aim of that study? In contrast, the significance is what you're hoping will result because of your study. So usually that is the effect on stakeholders. Stakeholders could be the participants, policymakers, other kinds of decision makers, depending, different groups of people could be stakeholders. That's what you typical scholars. And you would also write things called research questions, which we will focus on briefly today. So all of that. Wow. Oh, that's loud. Right. So I'm hearing all these noises around me. Right. So so let's go on to the lecture though. So in this lecture, you should be able to define a literature review, talk about some steps in conducting literature review. So the question is, what is a literature review? It is not just a written summary. It looks at past and current information. Should be well organized. It reports literature, either in themes or individual studies. I would suggest themes being usually a better way of doing it. And it documents a need for the study that you're proposing to do. If you can write a literature review and at the end, you expect two things in the summary. Basically, going over the key points that you had raised in the paper that you wrote or the chapter that you wrote. And you also expect that you're going to document the research gap. Remember last week in the lecture, we talked about last week in the lecture, we talked about types of research. Types of research gaps. You can look back at that, but 3 common types of research gaps is when there is a paucity of knowledge, as in not much knowledge on the area. Another one is when there's contradictory knowledge on the area. So that means that because one study says X and the other says the opposite, then there's a justification for this first study. And another one where there's no studies in the local context. So there are other types of reasons to propose, but it's by looking at the literature, then you can document why your study is justified. I see a question about the slideshow. I guess if I think about it, I could put it. I love questions that are logistics to be at the end of the lecture, not in the middle of the lecture. Right now, they're on my channel. My name is Suzanne Muir. You can just go to YouTube and type in my name. Right now, they're lecture 1 to 3. I guess if I remember, I'll try to post the link on Moodle, but it's quite simple. Just go to my name and you'll see my lectures. They're just simply called Computing Research Methods, lecture 1, lecture 2, lecture 3. So easy to find. I'll try to remember to post them on Moodle. But they're public on YouTube. So I'm streaming live right now. So the quantitative study, okay, there's some differences between the literature review in a quantitative study and a qualitative study. So both of them document why the research problem is important. The contrast though is in a quantitative study, it tends to, usually research that is quantitative, and you all know this means with numbers, there usually is some existing theory in the scholarly literature that is used in the study, whereas in a qualitative study, it's like the opposite. You're trying to look for a theory based on collecting non-numerical data. That's often the case. In a quantitative study, literature review is used to come up with the research questions typically, and you can do some comparison at the end with the results of other studies with what happens with this study that you're about to do. In contrast, as I told you, the first one is the same. And then in a qualitative study, it tends to not foreshadow, because in general, it's not just that participants provide their own views. Many qualitative studies are exploratory, and there is, as exploratory meaning, there is not much written on the area. So if there's a lot written in the area, then this might not be the case. So this is just usually the case. And in general, in a qualitative study, there tends to be less in the literature review at the beginning, and there's a discussion section in chapter 4, which will be larger, where you compare that study that you've just done with other studies that have been published. But no matter what, there are some key things that happens in every literature review, you need to identify key terms. Now, key terms is about the academic key terms. Sometimes you put in a word that is not the way that academics, and sometimes the search engine is smart enough to figure it out, and sometimes it is not. So you may want to be looking and you find an excellent article and you look at the article to see, it normally lists the key terms related to that article. So you may want to use those key terms to do searches in your search engine or your online database. So by the way, those are not the same things. So Google Scholar is a search engine used for academic literature, and there are a number of online databases. So let me just stop share for a second. God, this is 63 people here. It's a good time to do this. So hopefully all the lecturers would have done this. Why can't I come out of this? I'm trying to come out and I'm not being as successful. Oh, are you seeing my screen, guys? Oh, there we go. I'm just trying to come out and it's not working for me. Right, so let's go to UTech. Jamaica, hopefully that will give me, yes, UTech. So here we are at the UTech website. You don't want to bring up UTech website? Oh no. Is UTech website down by some chance? Let's look. This is UTech online. Come again?
Nothing screen teach.
Huh? Oh, anyway, let me just let me just at least look to see if UTech website is down. Oh, what a madness. UTech website is actually down. I actually wanted to be sure UTech website, but it's not up. You know, this is actually the first time in my life I've actually seen it down. Okay, fine. Sorry about that. I just in fact, since I let me share my screen and show you something different. So I was going to show you something on the UTech website, but it's actually unavailable at this time. All right, but let's just show one more thing just briefly. So everybody, I don't know why, but this is cancel. Right. So this is the website for the course. So just to remind you, if you haven't seen it yet, there's a course outline. Please look at it carefully. It gives you all the stuff for the course, meaning literally all the assignments, meaning just not every assignment. It just tells you what the percentages are and the rules for the course, etc. These are the lecture materials, week 1 and 2 materials, the first assignment. If your tutor doesn't want it uploaded there, like I think Dr. Jarrett wouldn't want it uploaded here, you just follow what your tutor says. But like my students will upload it to Moodle and also email it to me as well. So follow what your tutor says, students. So you have up to week 4 there, just showing you. And I'm about to show you something on here. So I'm just saying, we will be expecting you to be getting this material. So as somebody just said, am I putting up the links? That would make sense, wouldn't it? So back to where we were. So from current slide. So you want to look for the key terms. What I was about to tell you now is in locating literature, you want to do 2 things. Using Google Scholar, I think by now everybody would have learned that in the class. If they've been going to class, it's very simple. You go to Google, type in Scholar. Google Scholar comes up. And then you start to use it by entering keywords. There are a number of features which are simple to use. You can actually get the APA format there. Everybody here knows how to use it? Do you all need 2 minutes? Do you want me to show you for 2 minutes? Because I've showed my class so many times there. Sorry, show of hands. Is there anybody who needs? Show of hands, show of hands. If I have more than 4 people showing hands, I will take time. Otherwise, that's 3 people. 5 hands. Okay, let's take a few seconds. So, all right, share screen back to, why did I stop sharing the screen? Let's go back to this. Let's stop sharing. That might be easier to share a screen and then go to, which one did I go to for? I'm confused what to go to. Is this a, okay, this will be good. Just sharing one thing at a time. So this is Google. And back to this thing, go to Scholar. You know, what the madness is that? I don't normally use this particular search engine. So give me a topic. Well, let's put in this one I've done in another class. So somebody in one of my classes wants to look at mental health with chat box. And we were looking to see if there was any systematic reviews. Why? Because I recommend that you always want to see if there are systematic reviews. Because what was very intriguing, when you just put in chat box on mental health, it was actually 7,438. And by the way, if you just put in like mental health and say, you know, maybe computing, you're going to get a whole lot, 1.8 million, you know. So just chat box alone gives you that. But the thing about it, this is not a good example for what I want to say, is let's go to the systematic review that we found. No, I don't want a systematic review. Let's just admit this person. Okay, let's just back to opening this article that was published. Now look at some of these things on this thing. You see that it's cited by 37 already. You know, it was only published 2 years ago. You can cite it. Here's the APA reference. Remember using APA. You just would need to copy and paste. You can easily change the time that you only want to look at it since 2018. You can have different dates. You can decide you only want it since that date, and it gives you those results back to any time. And what's really important is these are the articles citing this, which would be useful, because remember you want to find articles that might be useful for where you're going with your project. But look at this, this is interesting. Can your phone, I'm just thinking, forget about this for a second. Can your phone be your therapist? Young people's ethical perspectives on the use of fully automated conversational agents, chatbox, and mental health support. So let's decide we want to look at this. You know, I want to look at this for 2 reasons. So for 2 seconds in the class. See right here. Let's just accept the thing. Here are the keywords. So the term, one of the terms is being used here is digital mental health. If you have never been in this field, you probably would know that there is an academic term called digital mental health. So you probably want to be searching for digital health, mental health, maybe on Chatbox as part of the thing. So these are all academic phrases. So even conversational agent is the academic term for things that we're talking about here. The chat box, apparently they're called conversational agents in academia. And the point is, this is what did this thing find? And you read the abstract. So in general, when you're looking for articles, what you do is you do a search, and you're going to use both a search as an academic search engine like Google Scholar, and you also can use online databases. And there are several of them on UTech website like IEEE. So if you go down to the Calvin MacLean Library section of the website, you find a lot of them that you can use, but you have to look at each one by one, and you can also email the librarians to get information. So I'm stopping there. And by the way, if you can't, there are 2 things about finding the articles. Sometimes some articles cost money. So I don't know. This, in fact, the same article I opened just now. Can the therapist? No, the whole thing was there. Let me go again. So let's see which one is. Let's see if this whole article is here. I'm trying to find an article that is actually not free. Oh, right. So here's one. The article doesn't seem to be free. I don't know. I would have to look. Maybe it is all there. Oh, this one is actually free too. The point is some articles are not free. And at that point, you either need to go and look at all the not related articles. You'd either need to look at all the versions. So you can look at all the versions to see if any of those versions are access the whole text, or you go to the online databases on UTech website, or you email the UTech librarian for our faculty. That's Tracia Price. I think it's T Price. And well, it needs a UTech website to be open. Anyway, let me stop share and go back to the share from before. Share screen. All right. So I was saying, the point is identifying the key terms come from both guessing as well as looking at the literature to see what are terms used in articles about your topic. So a lot of students tend to talk about looking for literature as the research. That's just the beginning point, guys. That's before you actually start writing, before reading. That's not research. That's just an investigation or a locating of literature, an important part of the process, which is not for the faint of heart. So you could do it. That's why it's recommended you do topics that you are interested in, or at least don't hate. So the thing is not to come with the first thing that you see. The first thing you see on Google Scholar is not necessarily most relevant to your project. You must look at them. Typically, unless it's an area that people have not written much about, there are usually anything from dozens to hundreds to even thousands of articles on that area by scholarly people. So you want to be selecting the better ones. You want to organize it, and then you write. So generally speaking, you want to come with a tentative working title. That tentative working title can change after the fact. You want to pose a tentative research question. Usually, since you're new to it, your first draft of this is not so good. That's why your teacher is there, or your lecturer is there to help you with that. You want to try to use words that match your topic. And by the way, your research question should have variables that are measurable. If it's not a good research question. Yeah, I want to worry about that particular point. So are journals better than books? When you're looking up for scholarly literature, you can use, I already said you can use online databases and indexes, which are in libraries, but you can look actually in peer-reviewed journals and in printed books. Which of these two are better? If they're all things being equal. So let's say a MIT professor publish a book and publish a journal. Which one is likely to be better if it's in a journal, in a book? Don't all speak at once. I'm asking a question to 62, over 60 people. Nobody? Well, can you believe that journals are considered generally to be better than books? And why? Not because books are not good. Usually journals are more up to date. So it usually takes books a longer process to be published. And usually books refer to journals, usually. So as such, journals tend to be more up to date. Not that it's different people who create them, but it's more to the currency of the information. And then there's other kinds of literature, like papers on websites and conference papers. In some fields like computing and engineering, conference papers can be considered valuable. So you can refer to peer-reviewed conference papers in your works if you want, but early stage literature should not be the heart of your project unless it is what is called an exploratory project, and then you need to talk to your tutor or your lecturer or some other person who has knowledge of this so that they can give you feedback if you're on the right track. All right, so there's a whole series of databases using computing research. This is a subset of them. So when you're looking for the databases, you can think about using these. You need to think about evaluating literature. Is it in a good journal? Has it been reviewed by 2 or more other people? Is it actually a research study that was done. For example, usually an opinion piece is obviously much less quality than a research study. So if it's not a systematic review or an empirical study, but it's an opinion piece, it's not going to be as good. There's actually some value, by the way, in what's called opinion pieces or perspective pieces, but at the moment for what you're doing, that is not what you're going to be focusing on for your projects. Okay, so you also want to think about in terms of adding to your literature. Is the paper that you found on the same topic as you proposed? Is there a similarity between who you want to look at? So if there's something that you're doing in Jamaica and there's nothing published in Jamaica, maybe you want to focus on the publications in developing countries rather than the ones in developed countries. What is as close to what Jamaica as possible, or the Caribbean. You want to put things that are similar enough to your study as is possible. The problem relevance, is it the same problem? And obviously, you only want to use literature that you can access. So sometimes just the abstract is useful, but usually you need the whole paper. So that's why I spent some time talking about how do you actually gain access to a whole paper. And guys, if you're going to contact the librarian for assistance, usually it takes anywhere from 24 hours to maybe up to 2 weeks. Sorry, the over 1 week kind of time is because there is something called library exchange, where if they cannot get it from the online database, because we are not signed up for a particular online database, there are actually arrangements between libraries in universities across the world where they literally exchange articles without breaking copyright. And so that normally takes time to do that particular task. So along that line, you're going to write a literature review. You need to start the literature search early. So the content of the abstract is going to vary. What you actually want to do, no matter what, is have a problem, research questions. Hypotheses are not typical in undergraduate studies. When you get to the point where you're writing the, right now you're not writing your methods. So next week, we're going to be talking about research design, just so you have a better understanding of research projects, the frame of them. And then we're going to go back to a part 2 on literature review. But when you look at the abstract, you're typically going to want to see, you're expecting to see research problem, research question, data collection, and some kind of results. There's one way to call it where it's called IMRAD, introduction, methods. What am I missing? Results and discussion. So that's another way that abstracts tend to be organized. So when you're organizing literature, you want to look at the abstract and see what they find. And you can find lots of stuff in one area. So like in the area of e-health, you could have found, well, no, it would be a whole lot more. So this, I think this was 2005, but this was 292 articles, and there was many in many different areas. You could look at this in order for you to say, okay, maybe what I really want to do is I want to look at people who want to find information about their healthcare. Like me just now, because my father has an illness, and I still up to now I still can't understand. I do understand actually why, but it took 4 different visits to a physician for us to get a diagnosis of his condition over about 5 to 6 weeks. And I was quite annoyed. And I'm now thinking, I try to not play doctor, but I need to go back to doing this, because when I got the diagnosis, I looked at this, but almost 85% of the symptoms were on this list. Why did none of the doctors think? And I realized why, because one of his presenting symptoms was not typical on that list. So even though he had all the other things, there's something called differential diagnosis. Who knows? But all I know is it's the last doctor who spent the most time who actually got with the, oh, this might be it, and then sent him off a particular test. So, but the point is, here it is. There is actually a whole long area of research about people who want to find information about, health systems, and that could be one area of research. But under e-health, there's a long list of things. What if you want to look at this? Which area would you research? You have to decide that. And then there are two ways to organize your actual literature that you're going to write. You either use the key terms and put it on a map visually, sort of like Oda showed a while ago, or you can literally draw and write an outline. That's what I do. So I either don't write an outline, write the paper, and then realize, oh, I need an outline. It really depends on what I'm doing, what I do. So the less I understand the topic, the more I'm inclined to write an outline because I need it. If I understand the topic, I can usually manage to write papers okay without an outline. But I suggest that everybody here either do a map or an outline or both to make sure that you're on track, because what's happening with your project is, so this is just about organizing with a map. And at the end of it, you have a map, and then you want to say what are the different ideas. And basically those are those different lines or boxes are what is going to be in the study itself. And then you have to decide each of those like little boxes. Those little boxes or circles would represent what each person in the group is going to write about, and you have to decide the order. So back to, if you do it in a map, you're still going to need to figure out what is the order of your map on the document. So when you write it itself, you're going to use APA and use the end of text references, the citations, the headings, and the table figures as per APA, the latest document. It's online for free, meaning the rules are online. We don't have time to teach it. Please go ahead and learn it yourself. So as I was saying earlier, this is a better option. Try to look at a thematic review where you organize. So you would start with literature review, would be either a chapter or a paper. Either way, it's almost the same thing. So if it's a paper by itself, which is your second assignment, you have an introduction, and then you have different sections of your paper, and then you have a summary. The introduction is going to say, some little background, and then say in this chapter or in this paper, we'll be talking about ABC. Those are the themes you're going to be talking about. And then each theme will have one or more paragraphs. And at the end now, the summary is going to be saying the same topics and what you learned, and then also talking about what is called the gap in the literature, which is just basically what is not known that makes sense why you're going to do a research project. So then you have the concluding statement in the literature review, which summarizes. And so that's why we have this. We end with a rationale for the need for the study based on this literature review. So one of the mistakes that people make in writing a literature review is that they actually talk about what you're going to be doing in your study. What you're going to be doing in your study, like, it's not even one sentence. Not even one sentence should be there. So what you might say here is that there is not research on X in Jamaica, but you're not going to say in our paper we're going to do that. That is in chapter 1 and in chapter 3. Because in chapter 1, you have a whole section where you're going to be talking about your aim and your, the significance. And then chapter 3, the methods chapter, will be where you're going to be talking about your procedures for your actual project. And in this class, you're going to be doing that in the ethics application assignment, where you're going to be basically summarizing the methods and the ethics considerations on as per usual. So all world-class universities and government bodies actually have ethics committees. So Jamaica actually has 2 by the government. So the Ministry of Health has one, and the Ministry of Justice has another for research in health and research on prisoners respectively. And NCU, UWI, and UTech has ethics committees. I don't know if other universities have them, but I know those 3 for sure. So at UTech, if you want to do research, whether you're a staff or a student, you first have to submit it to the Research Ethics Committee. So the 3rd assignment and for the third. One of the assignments for this class is to practice for that, which is going to be a component of major project. So in the project, you're going to be having a purpose statement, which is why you're doing the project, what you're hoping to get done during the project. As I said earlier, the research question is what you're hoping to answer, which you will then, the method will tell you how to do it. And typically in a computing project, you don't state the objectives, but you can, which is like the research objectives are subsets of the research questions or subsets of the purpose. All right. So I'm going to stop that share, and I'm going to share one more thing. So there are two more things I want to talk about today. Let's not get into the share. So I had initially decided, can see this is not working. What am I doing wrong? Let me just, or maybe it's because I didn't get out of the slideshow yet. What am I doing wrong? Stopping share. This is annoying. Let me go again. I'm no longer in what? Okay, not sure what is what. This is screen. So why does the screen? Okay, let's go to escape. Oh, that's why I just said, oh, should I press that? Okay. You guys can still share still see my screen, right? Yes?
Yes,
Good. Right. So I'm opening the week 3 class activities. You know, so by now everybody in all groups should be in a group working on your assignment. So as you would have seen, for every single week, I have a whole bunch of YouTube videos that I think could be useful. And I think a lot of these people, what I have in the YouTube videos, if you even look at, just even look one for this week, 2 million views and 1.4, and these people actually know what they're doing. That's why so many people actually, that's what I'm saying. This is a 5-minute video, 7.5-minute video. Take a look. It might help clarify some of the things I've been talking about. Right. So this is the assignment. It's also up on the Moodle site. But this is what I want to talk about for the rest of the time. 2 things. So this one. So made this up yesterday. Tips to improve your concept paper. So what are the important components of a concept paper? So I'm going to use the acronym ROC. Research gap, order, and coherence are the most important, but I have some others which are optional. So hopefully we know what research is, what research gap is. Research gap is basically that there is something that experts do not know that your research is seeking to answer. So that's a must. It would be good that a concept paper, the topic is relevant to us in Jamaica or in the Americas. This is actually, the faculty goal is that it should be 50% of student projects. So this is not a requirement, but it's a preference. Being organized is a must. It's not going to be very good if that's not the case. So you're going to achieve a good order by having good paragraph development, and you can do that in one of 2 ways. Either use an outline, but as I said, I don't even always write with an outline. I suggest it for people who are have not been writing for decades, right? But even if you write an outline, you still want to test your document using something I just found about less than a year ago. If you read the first sentence of every paragraph, it should flow together. So if we're going to go down to here to what makes a good paragraph. Every good paragraph should have a topic sentence, which is the main idea of the paragraph. So if you go back to this, we're saying that if you read the first paragraph of each section of the document, it should make sense, flow together. That's the same thing for lit review, in fact. In fact, for any paper. The only exception actually is perhaps newspaper articles, but I won't even say so, but sorry, because newspaper articles tend to have a little different structure. But even so, it should still make sense that way, because like their first paragraph tends to be what is called it sparks interest. But even that thing that sparks interest, if you put the thing in order, it still should make sense as a whole. It's a hook, because I even told you before that hook. I just watched a video today, or as a text today, was talking about the possibility of doing academic conference papers, presentations using a hook. And we'll talk about that another day, not today. But the point is, you need to think about the order of really important. Then the next thing we want to talk about is coherence. So the coherence means that each of the sections should kind of fit together like a puzzle, that the whole thing makes sense as a whole. So the background, the problem statement, the research question, the purpose, the significance, and the methods together make sense. I've seen projects where what the problem statement say and what the research question say and what the significance say, it almost seems like different projects. What the background say can't make any sense. Everything must fit and flow, right? And that's why whether you're doing it only by yourself or with other people, you have to read. There must be somebody who's reading every part of the document, and preferably one person or all of you reading the whole thing together. It must be coherent for it to be very good or excellent. Optionally, it could be current. So current emerging technology or controversy in terms of the scholarly literature. Because if what the topic you're writing about, many people are writing about, then if you publish it, it's likely to going to have a lot of citations. And if you're obviously doing a research project on something that is a emerging technology, then it might be more useful. So that's optional, but recommended. And then finally, this shouldn't even have to be there, but I put it there as required because students seem to don't know this. You must have citations in every paragraph that is literature. So in the concept paper, the background section, which is a page or page and a half, must have citations in every paragraph. Similarly, the literature review, the whole thing apart from the introductory paragraph and the last paragraph, which is the summary, everything else, every paragraph should have citations, and then the reference page at the back, it should refer to all the citations that were there. So there should be no citations that is not in the reference list, and nothing in the reference list that is not cited. And what are the kind of references? Landmark studies, otherwise known as seminal studies, ones that have helped shape the field. Systematic reviews, if they exist, which are comprehensive overviews of the topic. That includes meta-analysis or system reviews / meta-analyses, and recent papers, hopefully published in peer-reviewed journals. Okay, and so basically the recap of that is minimum is research gap plus well-organized plus coherent, and please use citations. And then the optional things is relevant to the local context and current. Those are preferred. So what makes a great paragraph? You should test it. Is there a topic sentence for the main ideas of the paragraph? You should actually have evidence and examples, obviously with citations about those topics. You should organize it well, have a structure so it flows within the paragraph. And at the end of the paragraph, there should be a transition sentence. Now, this is optional, but it is better. If every single paragraph has a transition sentence so it flows together, much better writing than you just leave it hanging. And similarly, the last paragraph in a paper should have a concluding sentence. This makes it not disjointed and crafted well. And I just wrote what I said already. The paper should be edited by group members at least once before submission to the tutor. Sometimes it's helpful to read the paper out loud, can you imagine? Or show it to somebody else for feedback. And here's another article I saw. Look at this one. This is actually directed at people would probably master's or PhD, but it's the same general thing. It's only 11 minutes, already has 222,000 views, and I actually like it. I think the last 2 minutes wouldn't apply to you, but it's good basic concepts. So these kind of things I've given you is just to reinforce what you're going to be doing in the class. So any questions about this? So the last thing that I want to do is, okay. All right, so in 2 weeks from now, is the anniversary of my birth. February 15th. Happy February, everybody. And I wanted to have a awesome trio contest. But based on my Monday evening students, I'm wondering if you are also interested at this time. So we may need to defer it to another time. But let me just go through it really quickly. So last year, about this time, I started a research lab called Awesome. And we'll be training both third year and fourth year students for research and development. It's really focused on the fourth year students, but we're doing major project, but it can include the third year students. And so the idea is that this time to educate for empowerment, to execute research and development and disseminate that research and development through presentations and publications. Trio talks are ones that provide speakers and the audience with a forum to present. This trio, research ideas, as in its talks. So these talks are about technology, research, education, and opinions on any area of computing. So what I was thinking is to have a challenge where people would give a talk of groups of students in this class would give a talk on either a physical activity intervention, digital health, which is my area. And let me just let me stop the share for a second. Or any topic that you're currently doing for your RES 3024 project. So any group, so the group could be up to 5. So a group of minimum 2, but maximum 5 could present a 10 to 15 minute presentation in 2 weeks. What you would have to do, you'd have to submit an abstract to be part of this this opportunity. So let me just take 2 seconds to share my screen again. I'll go back to that in a second, but just doing one more thing first. Oh no, that's not the wrong thing. Stop share. Hold on. You know, I don't know. No matter how long I'm using, no matter how long I'm using Flow, I keep having challenges. I don't know why. Why do I still having challenges with? Maybe I should just use this and done. No, I don't want to use that one. You still see my screen, right? Guys, you see my screen?
Yes, miss.
Yes, miss.
All right, so this is the lady that is I watched. So this, in fact, I particularly chose her because she's not the typical like Caucasian person. Sorry, there's a lot of papers on literature review and research written with people who don't look like the typical Jamaican. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show for 2 seconds. So. So I don't know if you guys know this song, but this has been, I don't know, the most viral song since the pandemic. I was actually amazed. You not seen the video? Oh, you hear the music but not the video? Hold on, let me start this again. See the video now? So this is in Jamaica. So it has 371,000 views. Right. So what is hilarious about this video? If you had seen the background of these things before, some of the videos on this have people like in Africa eating food from Africa. In Jamaica, they have people eating KFC. And I was thinking, why don't we have people eating like authentic Jamaican food? And I showed this in the Monday class, people said, but KFC in Jamaica is Jamaicanized, which we all know. Anyway, here's my little thing, by the way. My personal preference for research is something called digital health, of which physical activity intervention is only one. So for example, there could be a project, little children, we could even show you ones with this kind of thing, little children, seniors, because they tend to have exciting videos. Could have extra videos where children and old people in Jamaica, we compile videos, we see if that leads to more increased physical activity. But that's only one of a million things. That's only something I, Suzanne, you're of interest in. My point is, I believe that there are lots of people in this class who are really talented. Are you seeing my screen now with the slideshow? Or I need to reshare?
Still seeing the video, teacher.
Oh, you're still seeing the video. Let me stop the share. Because I go back to that here. So I'm back to here from current slide. Let's go back to, right. So I was saying, obviously any item. So that would include computers and education, intelligence systems. So we actually have in SCIT lab for computers and education, led by Lisa Fisher, a lab for intelligence systems led by David White. There is a lab led by, security by Dr. Sean Thorpe, who's the head of school. And then I lead, no thanks, no, have a great day, Danito. Then I lead another lab. All I'm suggesting is if there's anybody who is interested in doing a presentation in 2 weeks, you could indicate. I'm going to put the information on the web, on Moodle site. And if you do well, there's an increased possibility of funding a major project, maybe a stipend, and if you do well in the presentation. Now, the thing is, I've already decided in 2 weeks from now, I'm not coming to class. So that is where I'm inviting students to present. What I'm going to do in 2 weeks is the class I have on Monday, I'm going to record. And on Tuesday, if anybody is willing to make that presentation, we'll have that be the class session. But I'm really excited for that to happen. And anybody who is interested in doing it, I will be willing to help them prepare for that. Because, by the way, guys, these kind of tasks help you. Last year, I actually was the person who I supervised a group of students from 3rd year into 4th year. And one of those students who's currently at UTEC won Best Oral Presentation Prize at Ministry of Health conference, beating out even physicians making presentations. So, yeah, at any rate, so just giving the context, I'm hoping that somebody here would have interest. You can email me. My email is skitpapers@gmail.com.